On the Edge explores diversity and changes needed in today's workplace. I'm Rayanne Thorn Krueger. Welcome to The Edge. It's June 19th, 2024, and I have an incredible guest today. I feel so honored to welcome Torin Ellis to The Edge. Hey, Torin, thanks for joining me.
I appreciate that. And with today being Juneteenth, let me just say it's a special day. I want to read something to you that actually came through literally moments before you and I started recording. It says, King Torin, it's Juneteenth, fam. It's still odd to me that this is a holiday, yet no one at work has acknowledged what it's about. And considering that President Biden passed this legislation a couple of years ago, I believe it was in 2021, making it a national holiday. And there were a number of us on one side who said, why? We didn't really ask for this. What we prefer to see is that police stop shooting unarmed Black men in the streets. We prefer that we do something around the cost of healthcare or the inequity of healthcare amongst Black and brown women. We prefer that we do something around the incredible cost of student loan debt and some of the other things. We didn't really ask for a holiday, this particular holiday, to become a federal holiday, but it is.
It is
the first federal holiday that we had since Ronald Reagan signed MLK back in whenever he signed it. And we still have people today, 3 years later, given all that we've discussed, 3 years later, that in this person's workplace haven't even acknowledged it. They didn't ask about it. They didn't do anything. They don't know what it is. And for a lot of people, it's just another day, but it really is a special day, Rayanne.
This deserves the emoji, the hand on the forehead emoji. And you answered my first question for you, which is why do we continually have to talk about this? Because there are so many people that still don't get it. So for anyone tuning in, Torin, I would love before we get started, you tell us a little bit about yourself, about what you're doing today in the world.
Yeah, so Torin Ellis, consultant, coach, speaker, and advisor. I do all things diversity and inclusion, also known as humanity. I do all things focused on humanity and curating workplaces that are better for all people, that leaders inside of those organizations model what it really looks and sounds like to be equitable, to be inclusive. I am incessantly focused on how is it that we build better scenarios for this thing called work. That's who I am, and I do that unapologetically. I think my future rising is that I want to lean more into my creative ambitions, and I want to develop a piece of technology that sits inside of the HR tech space, and hopefully that's something that we'll do this year. But for those out there that are listening, Rayanne, just really quickly, Juneteenth is considered one of the longest celebrations in the country as it relates to the end of slavery. Basically, what it said was the troops had to ride into Galveston, Texas, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, and they forced them in Texas to release their slaves. It happened 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. We went through an era, Rayanne, where we had actually something like 134 Black-owned banks after that period, from 1865 to like 1934. More than 130 Black-owned banks. Today we have less than 20. So when people ask me, why is it that you do the work that you do? Why is it that you are constantly focused on all of the levers that are involved inside of the business organization, that it's not a conversation just about talent acquisition or some silly unconscious bias training, but that it's the totality of who we are in the corporate and community corridors? That's part of the reason why. Because I want life to be better for all of us all the way around.
Agree. And I struggle so much that this is what it is. I it's hard for me to hear it, to see it, to read about it, to understand that this has to be political, right? So many people say, why do you have to make it political? It has to be political. And this is why getting out the vote is so important, in particular this year, and why it matters. And it's incomparable to me that this conversation has to be done over and over and over again. And I appreciate your strength, your tenacity, the empowerment that you grant to other people including me, to continue this conversation. You and I met 11 plus years ago, and you have added so much to my life and to my understanding of the differences, the sameness, and how we can work together. And I really appreciate your outreach and your continued involvement in equality, in the diversity. I don't even call it a movement. Why don't we just say it needs to be? It shouldn't be like, why are we call it feels so weird to me now to call it a movement.
Yeah, you were a special soul then. That balmy breezed evening in Miami, you were a special soul then. And you've continued to be a special soul throughout the years. And so when we counted as saying 11 plus years ago, my hope and prayer, Rayanne, is that we get to say this 30 years from now.
Yes.
When I'm in my 80s and we are looking back on all that we accomplished, all that we attempted, some of our failures and joyous moments, that you and I find some way to connect. It may not be a mobile device, but it'll be digital smoke signals or something. But that 30 years from now, we're able to smile on conversations like the one that we're having today. So again, thank you for allowing me to be with you and your audience.
Well, I appreciate your patience with me and other people like me, that you continue to teach me, that you continue to include me in your circle of influence and allow me to talk to you on occasions and in situations such as this. I want to talk to you. Thank you for joining me on Juneteenth. I can't thank you enough. So let's move on. I want to talk to you about something that popped up on my Facebook memories this week, and on June 17th, 2020. So we're talking at the height of COVID, right? Remember, we were all at that place and thinking, what's next, right? We didn't know. And still, we were talking about diversity. We knew that this happened on the 17th. So Juneteenth was coming up. I want to show a Facebook post that I shared, and I want to get your gut reaction on this. This was an image that somebody took a picture on the 55 freeway, which is the main vein into South Orange County, which is known as a very rich part of Orange County, Southern California. It's where Newport Beach is. It's where Laguna Beach is. This is the highway that takes you into Laguna Beach. And this woman took this picture of the back of this truck flying the American flag, like that, a 3x5 American flag, which where we see other flags like that flown, right? And then this rope that's hanging off the back. I shared this, reshared. It had been shared a number of times, thousands of times. And so I reshared it on my page. And one of the first comments was, "How stupid are you people? That is a tow rope," right? So my initial response to this, and we'll bring it back up. I'm going to hide it now so that we can talk about this. But my initial response was that how stupid are you to think that this doesn't have meaning? I don't care if it's a tow rope. I don't care. I lived in a farm community of Indiana for 10 years. My ex-husband drove trucks consistently. My husband is a truck driver. I have never seen a tow rope hanging off of either one of their trucks like that, right? So the conversation went on. There were hundreds of comments on that particular post. And this person stood true to that. That's a tow rope. It doesn't mean anything. You're trying to make it into something. And my contention is if you're flying an American flag like that down a highway in a very white part of Southern California during an election year when there's a lot of upheaval in the country, not just in politics, but in the country in general, there's meaning behind that. And how do we, what are your initial thoughts about that? Maybe you remember seeing that. And how do we combat that? How do we talk back? And I don't mean talk back, but you know what I mean? How do we continue the conversation so that we can convince somebody that has it in their head that that has no meaning?
Yeah, Rayanne, sometimes I feel like we enroll ourselves in exercises of futility. And what I will say is that there are some individuals that cannot be reached. There are individuals that unfortunately will not change their opinion and or position. And so I'm not suggesting that we wouldn't try. That's certainly not a person that I believe I'd knock on their driver's side or passenger side window and attempt to have a conversation. That's probably not going to happen. However, if I were in the workplace and I were a colleague of that individual and experienced or saw them pull up into the parking lot, I think I have an obligation as a colleague to have a discussion with them about what is it that you are attempting to say, and do you understand that you may be communicating something that you're not attempting to say. I would do that if I was a colleague of that particular individual. I mean, there are few arguments that I'm going to, or conversations that I'm going to run from, especially when they have something to do with an assault or a threat on humanity. And so if I'm in that workplace and that person is not open to a conversation, then I'm probably going to find ways to keep a distance between myself and them. And if I am their superior, I'm probably going to, and I'm recording this, yes, if I'm their superior, I'm probably going to find ways to make it a little less than comfortable for them to display those types of sentiments in the workplace. You can have them. I'm not going to fire you for them, but I am certainly not going to make it comfortable for you to be blatant and toxic, if you will, in our workplace. Let me move from that to an example. I want to share in 2017, James Damore wrote a manifesto at Google. And in his manifesto, he said something to the effect of men are better prepared to be in technology than women. We have the temperament, we have the ability. It's different than that of women. And so we are better engineers than women. We also are experiencing sort of a cacophony. I forget the word that he used, but basically he felt like Google made it more acceptable for people to be, let me use a current term, woke. He felt like Google made it more acceptable for people to be more woke, more embracing of diversity, and there was less opportunity for a person with opposing views to be able to speak up. Google fired him. And I was on SiriusXM at the time, and I said, they made a huge mistake. They're going to pay for it. And they missed an opportunity. Forget the money. They missed an opportunity to have a broader conversation that the entire world could have watched and seen, considering the work that they had done on Project Oxygen, considering the work that they had done on Project Aristotle. You use this James Damore incident to broadcast to the world how we build better teams and embrace opposing views in the workplace. For that person driving around in that white pickup truck on the freeway, I'm not stopping them. In a grocery store, not having any interaction, but in the corporate corridor, I am going to work hard to get to understand you are sending a message that is disruptive, it's not good, and I'm not going to make it comfortable for you. You ask me, how do I feel? That's sickening to me. It reminds me of a Confederate flag. That's my bias.
Right. Exactly.
When I see a Confederate flag, I got an issue and my antennas go up. If I
Yeah.
see it in a neighborhood or when I'm going to a particular establishment, my antennas, I'm on high alert when I see that flag. So I know what you may say it means, but I also know what it means to me. And so because of that, I operate and move a little bit differently.
Yeah, I had never seen, I'm old, but I had never seen a Confederate flag flying until last year when I landed in Charleston and got on the highway outside of Charleston. And it made me sick. I mean, I felt like I needed to pull over to the side of the road and vomit. And I'm a white woman who's lived a middle class white existence, and I'd never seen that. And it was sickening to me that that is still portrayed willingly and allowed anywhere in the U.S.,
And
anywhere,
what's
anywhere.
even what's even worse, I didn't mean to talk over you, Rayanne. What's even worse is that they more often than not will try to portray that the flag means something different than it really means. And so for me, it's like, listen, stand with both feet in what it is that you believe in. We cannot, millions of individuals are not wrong in reference to when that flag was established, why it was established, and who established it. So stand on that. Don't try to circumvent and water it down and make it
Right,
seem like it's
right.
something
It's
different.
a battle flag. I've
It
heard
ain't,
every
it's none
every
of that.
excuse. Yeah.
It's none of that. You all were losers, and it says something about who you all are, and you are erecting such to suggest something to all of us. And so, to the people with the flag and to the guy with the white pickup truck, you are problematic, and I try to change problems.
I agreed 100%. So thank you for giving your input on that. What is your mission, Torin Ellis? What is the mission of Torin Ellis?
So for me, it's about bringing the unusual, the unsuspecting, and the unfamiliar together, confident that we can meet all of our goals, mission, and objective. That's it. It's about making sure that organizations are asking the question, how do I do this differently? Who's missing from this particular conversation? Why is it that we've not been able to penetrate a particular community or geography? What are we lacking as it relates to how we develop our products and our services? Are we not having certain conversations around who should be under consideration for maturation and ascension in the organization? When we look at headcount management and workforce planning, what audiences or communities have often been ignored or are largely underrepresented in our organization? It's a constant and persistent conversation. That's my mission. My mission is to keep it as close to top of mind as I possibly can. Listen, I'm not suggesting that diversity and inclusion is the most important thing, but what I am suggesting is that the people in the organization are extremely important and vital, and that we win as organizations when we include a different arrangement, a different consideration. That having diversity, having inclusion, making people feel like they belong, going the extra mile around equality and equity, that those things are not bad things. They're not damaging. They're not negative. They are embracing. And that if a person is suggesting to you that diversity and inclusion is only Black or women, that they are a person who's ill equipped to have the conversation. All I'm suggesting is that there is a better way. And I want to force organizations, challenge organizations to wrestle with, how do I pursue that better way?
I love it. You don't know this, but the better way has been a mantra of mine since the early 2000s. And I have consistently used that as a reason to stay apprised of news, to keep educating myself on things. And one of the things that I want to ask you about is the word woke. All right. You mentioned it earlier. And consistently, when I run into that and I make a comment, somebody will come back as me, oh, you're just part of the woke liberal community. There you are being woke again. And when I respond with, well, tell me, what does woke mean? They don't answer. They can't answer because they know the answer. They don't want to say the answer because then it makes them look like the asshole, right? So
Oh,
what
I
is,
didn't know you could curse on your podcast. Okay,
oh,
great.
we can curse here.
Okay, okay. So now that changes things. I get to relax a little bit, drop the shoulders a
Yes,
little
you
bit.
do. Yes, you
Oh,
do.
yes, indeed. Talk to 'em.
Absolutely. So what's your response to that? How do you, when somebody says, "Oh, you're just woke." Oh, there
Yeah,
they go. It's the woke generation.
yeah, I am. But again,
I am. Thank you.
I am well. I mean, but the bottom line to that, Rayanne, I keep saying Roxanne. I don't know why
That's
I'm
okay. I've been called
uttering
everything
that.
that
I know
starts
it's
with an R.
Rayanne. I know that. I don't know why I keep saying Roxanne. So Rayanne, let me just say this to you. Um, I'm really not all that phased by individuals who do a lot of name calling and throwing bricks and hide the hand. I'm not really moved by those individuals. I'm not moved by individuals that hide behind curtains of complacency and mediocrity. I'm not moved by people who have feelings like wet tissue paper. I'm not moved by those individuals. I'm not moved by them. We started the conversation around Juneteenth, and when you do the history and you start to research and understand that the last slave in the United States was released in the early 70s, that people were still enslaved into the 1970s. When I think about all that people
Ugh.
have lost, when I think about all of the institutions that have been stood up on patriarchy and privilege, when I think about all that we have experienced around us, you calling me woke is the least of my concerns. Like, I'm not getting ready to sit up here and argue online with a whole bunch of individuals. I'm not getting ready to get into a pissing match with people who want to feel like I am too concerned about. I don't care about none of that. I don't care about none of that, because at the end of the day, every single thing that I'm fighting for is to make work and community life better for them as well. Because all I can tell you is that you can give any of the statistics that impact individuals that are marginalized, underrepresented, and under-resourced. You can give any of those statistics to the dominant culture, and they would absolutely run from trying to embrace that. There's no way that they would want to be associated with that. December of 2018, the Boston Globe, and I believe it was 2018, the Boston Globe did a 7-part series. And I can't remember the title of the 7-part series. It escapes me.
We'll find it and we'll put it in the comments.
7-part series. And in the first installation, it said that the average wealth of a Black family in Boston was less than $8. I don't give a damn about a person saying that I'm too woke because I'm trying to do something that changes the lot in life for those individuals with a family net worth of $8. They can call me all the names that they'd like to call me. I am working hard to shift the narrative around power and our proximity to power. I am working to do that. So the name calling doesn't matter to me. And for the individuals who do it inside of the workplace, they just feel like equity and equitable scenarios is, I forget the saying, but I don't care about them either. The bottom line is, when people like myself, and I'm not the only one who does it, Rayanne, when people like myself go into organizations, we go into organizations with a frequency of love and process, and we are doing that to sprinkle around the feet and the desk of every single person in there, period.
I want you to run for president. Can't
No,
wait.
no, no. See, let me tell you, um, he and they are a lot better than I would ever be, because they would give me some of that bullshit, and then I would just simply say, you know what, let's take this mic off. Let me put on another mic, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. I'm not a person who's going to do a whole lot of biting my tongue and choking
Right.
on my words. And so that's not a space that I need to be in. And people need to understand, we all have a position to play. I can't be the person that I want to be in corporate America. I tried. Like, I literally tried to work in corporate America. I had one of the top performing sales teams in the entire country when I walked away. They wouldn't promote me because they said that I was too outspoken, because I challenged individuals in the meetings too often. So I'm just telling you, Rayanne, I've tried to operate inside of the confines of corporate America, and it doesn't work for me. It works better for me outside. I can be a protagonist, I can be an antagonist, I can be optimistic, I can be a course corrector, I can do organizational redesign, I can do all of that from a position of strength as a consultant. So I'm gonna stay right. I'm gonna stay right here.
No, you're in the right spot.
Indeed.
I become empowered listening to you. And that is what I think leadership is, right? You are a leader in that you pass along information, you pass along strength, so that I feel like I can speak on this even though it's not my community, when really it is, because it is humanity, right? I feel like I could stand by you in any fight, Torin, and I want to thank you for empowering me to do that. And I
Let
want
me
to
tell
ask,
you, let me
go
tell
ahead.
you real quick. One of the most rewarding things, and I'll be really, really quickly. One of the most rewarding things is in my capacity to be able to go into a number of organizations and people build quickly a rapport and trust with me. And they start to reveal things that they are struggling with, challenged with, people that are roadblocks to their progress. And so when you get to experience that over and over and over again, not just in one company or one particular industry or one geography, it happens for me across the country and internationally. I love that. And I know that we are making change. So I just want you to know that you said something about lending the empowerment. That was such a beautiful phrase. And that is exactly what I attempt to do. When I go into an organization, I want people to feel that spirit, like, you know what? I feel stronger. And I'm going to challenge some of the inequities that exist in my place of work.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I'm in church. I'm in church and I'm going to listen to you share and I'm going to let that infuse me so that when I leave church, I take that spirit with me and I preach it outward. I share it outward. So thank you for that. With that, how can someone like me, a white girl living in Southern California, how can I make a difference? What do I need to do?
So I think the first thing is empowerment. We have to be able to call out some of the inequities. Cornel West says it best, that we've been silent in the face of injustice. Far too often, we don't have a comment when we know that things are just not right. So we have to feel some degree of empowerment. The second thing that you and everyone else has to be able to do is they have to have some degree of strategy. You have to be able to discover and explore strategically what should be happening inside of the workplace. Listen, all of this diversity and this humanity stuff sounds great. It's really what's the word that I'm looking for? Pollyannish, if you will. But the truth of the matter is that it has to connect to how does the business continue to advance and deliver to its stakeholders and shareholders. So as an individual, Rayanne, strategically, you should be thinking about how do you show up in the workplace? Where is diversity and inclusion missing inside of the organization? What can we do to make sure that adoption of these efforts and these principles and these processes and this organizational redesign that Torin talks about, where is it that we can infuse that a little bit more? We can push a little bit harder. Where are we receiving the most resistance, the most negativity and pessimism? How do we change that? You have to be able to do that, but every single person has to do that. And then the last thing is tactical execution. Listen, all of the ideas in the world are wonderful, but if they don't get acted upon, it's futile. And so what I simply say is we need empowerment, we need strategic exploration, and we need tactical execution. The one thing that every listener can do, the one thing is that they can answer the question, what did I do to support my organization's D&I efforts? That's the only question that they have to answer. Because if they answer it and say, Rayanne, I didn't do anything, well, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
And if you report to me, we'll work through that problem. Maybe you didn't do anything because you don't know how. Maybe you didn't do anything because you were afraid. You don't have the bandwidth. Maybe there's a good reason why you didn't do anything. Let's see if we can shift things around so that in 2025 you can participate. Or they may say to that question, well, I attempted to do this and it didn't really work out. That's a different conversation. And as their leader, I'm going to say, all right, well, what resources were you lacking? Or is there something that I need to do? Are you missing domain knowledge? Is there a connection or a collaboration point that you need to make that come to life, if you will? Because that's an individual who's going to try again in 2025. And then there's that audience of people who say, you know what? I ain't doing this D&I thing. It has no place in the workplace. It does nothing about the work that I do, has nothing to do with my KPIs and blah, 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 blah. And as their leader, I'm going to have a different conversation with them as well. What am I suggesting? That if every single person in the organization, 60 people, 600 people, 6,000 people or more, if every person answers that one question, we will change the frequency and the velocity. We will change the trajectory of how we advance the D&I conversation. That we won't be just looking at such through the lens of race and gender. That we will be looking at such, as I've said at the top of the call, community and geography, product and services, headcount management, succession planning, and all of the other things that matter to the business. But you have to be willing to answer that one question. So you,
I
Rayanne,
love it.
let's say, this is what I did in 2024 to support D&I efforts in our industry.
I love that. And you said answer a question. It might also be as simple as asking a question. If you see that your company changes their logo for Pride or for Black History Month, maybe ask, what else are we doing? What else are we doing to make a difference? Is it just that? Is it just that? Are we only change? Are we just giving the day off on Juneteenth? Is that the only thing we're doing? What else are we doing? And if enough people start asking, right? Maybe we'll start to see a difference. I can't thank you enough. Before we get away, and my guest today has been the wonderful Torin Ellis, my teacher. Um, any resources you can share?
Um, well, since we talked about Juneteenth, I would encourage people to go out and maybe look at the documentary Slavery Revisited. It's a little older. I think it came out in
Okay.
like 2012.
Okay.
Um, so look at Slavery Revisited. It's titled Peonage in the South. Peonage, Peonage. And the definition of peonage, really quickly, Rayanne, is when individuals are remanded to some form of work for no compensation. And it's a reverse way of saying that, well, I owe Rayanne $10, so let me work my debt off. And then when I get to the zero, Rayanne has some different formula of saying, no, you really didn't pay off the 10. You owe me another 10. And so it keeps a person indebted. Peonage, Slavery
Peonage.
Revisited,
Okay.
Peonage in the South. There's a more current documentary that I would love for people to look at. It's titled Policing. I believe that's on the Netflix or the Hulu platform, titled
Okay.
Policing,
Policing.
Policing. And then the last resource that I would encourage people to engage with is The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. You'll read the book, and if you're genuine, you'll say to yourself, that phrase of pull yourself up by your bootstraps will land differently. The book, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. And then if you really
Yes,
want the resource, get with your man, torinellis.com. Find me on social media because I
I
got a
do.
rack of stuff that I can give you.
I know.
torinellis.com.
I know you do. And to reference the bootstrapping, there are so many phrases and words that we need to rethink. So many. And as soon as you start rethinking those, as soon as you know the meanings, everything changes for you when you speak. You're a little bit
Absolutely.
more careful. You're a little bit more cautious. You're a little bit more have a little bit more empathy and put thought into your words, which is what we need today, is to be more mindful and more thoughtful in everything we do and say and
Absolutely.
write and write. Thank you so much, Torin, for being my guest today. Before we get away, what's next for you?
Let's see. We'll be in London in a couple of weeks for RecFest. Um, I told the team in London, you'll get a kick out of this, Rayanne. I told the team in London, because I've done the event every year since 2019. I told the team in London, put me as the very last speaker. No one wants to really be last because,
Right.
people are catching
People
flights and they're
leave.
leaving.
They're going to
They've
the
had a
pub.
long day. Yeah, they've had a long day out in the sun. 4,000 people had a long day out in the sun. Nobody really wants to be last. But I told them, put me last on the agenda and watch what we do. So next for me is RecFest. And then it's a summer of occasional activities. And then RecFest again in September, Canada in October. So we got some things happening. And hopefully by the end of the year, like I said, we'll be in beta for the HR tech solution that we're trying to build around business intelligence and
Awesome.
mid-level leadership.
Ooh, I can't wait to learn more about that. Well, as always, you've been so wonderful and so accommodating to join me on the edge today. I can't thank you enough, my friend.
Thank you.
And I look forward to the next time. Anybody who has questions for Torin, please reach out to him via LinkedIn, or you can also go to his website, torinellis.com. As always, the best. Always the best, Torin. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
And we'll see you all next time on The Edge. Thanks for tuning in. On the Edge has been made possible by Never Enough Media.